Welcome to Women Who Brand, a podcast that spotlights inspiring women in the creative industry. I'm Alejandra Salazar, founder and CEO of CROING, which is part of the 0.1% of creative agencies founded by a woman. And I'll be your host today. This podcast is part of an initiative of CROING to inspire women in the industry by sharing the journey and insights of those who are leading the way. Women Who Brand are creative, strategic, and visionary forces in the world of marketing. They make an impact in both their role and the industry as a whole. Whether through campaigns, storytelling, or experiences, they shape how people perceive, interact with, and remember a brand. In this episode, we talk with Alyssa Mackowski, the creative director of OLIPOP. She shared about her unexpected leap from sports to advertising. She also talked about how OLIPOP mixes nostalgia with fresh ideas, which you can see in their Soda Stories campaign, and encourages women to boldly pursue their creative dreams, both personal and professional. So please join me in welcoming our next woman who brand, Alyssa Mackowski. So happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining me. For those who don't know, Alyssa is the creative director at OLIPOP. Gotta guess, right? I'm sure we got a few fans of the brand here, and I'm sure after this podcast, you will become her fan as well. I actually met Steven first, who is OLIPOP Strategic Partnership Director during Social Media Week earlier this year, where we both were speaking. And I told him about the Women Who Brand initiative, and he immediately said that his team was made up of incredible women, and that's how Steven introduced us to Alyssa. So I'm happy we thank him. Alyssa, again, it's really a pleasure for you to be here, and we all love the brand and all the amazing work that you're doing, and can't wait to get to know you better. So let's get started. Alyssa, tell us about your career, your journey. What led you to pursue a career in marketing and creativity, and how do you feel about your current role at OLIPOP?
Yeah, so I got into advertising kind of by accident. I actually
That happens a lot.
I was growing up, I was a pretty intense soccer player, and I had a dream to go to college on a full ride scholarship. And while I was getting recruited, I tore my ACL and meniscus and had to quick pivot. But it's okay. I think as you'll learn from me on as I go through my journey, I'm grateful for it. I think it allowed me to expand my horizons. I always loved art as a kid, but could never really focus on pursuing it because of, my time on the field. So I quickly switched gears, decided I would go to design school instead. Started as a graphic design major, but then kind of got exposed to the world of advertising. My undergrad program had a portfolio program, which I then joined. Learned that there was a side of design that was also conceptual, and then as one does, had the dream of going to New York City. And
oh my God. I think you're sharing my story because I'm also sorry that I'm interrupting, but I'm also a graphic designer. My background is on graphic design. And then my final thesis was about advertising. So I did an advertising campaign with the same concept of like communication through visuals. And then I moved to New York. I mean, other cities in the meantime, but
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's great. A ton of synergies already. So I did a lot of work at 360i and then RGA in New York City, working on a ton of brands such as National Geographic, Oreo, Subway, then Verizon and Instagram, and a little bit of Nike. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about new age advertising. I learned a lot about the importance of social media balanced with, above the line TV, which is what I had learned at school. But it was a lot of on the ground understanding as new age technology just came to be.
yeah.
And then I wanted to try something new. I liked the fixed way of advertising agencies, but I had also had appetite to just kind of figure out how else you can share stories. Started freelancing around, knew ECD who was freelancing at OLIPOP. And at that time, OLIPOP was just sold in Erewhon. This was almost over 4.5 years ago. And I took a leap of faith and fully, joined the team. And it's been a really amazing journey seeing where OLIPOP is today. When I, was having conversations with people when I first joined, it would be, oh, a healthy soda brand? Like, good luck with that. OLIPOP?
Yeah.
And now you say OLIPOP and there's a
Wow.
around it. So
And how big was the company by then?
it was 50 employees, and now we're upwards of 250.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a really, really amazing ride to be on. It's a job where you've worn many hats through, I've worn many hats through the 4 years that I've been here, but it is the most rewarding job I've ever had. And, it's the cliche of the dream job, but,
Love it.
but, but it feels like
Oh,
that. And it feels like that building it with amazing, amazing people around me. I think that's one of the biggest parts of Olipop's success is that it's
love
a
it.
really good job.
Oh, congrats. I'm so happy for you, honestly. I think we all deserve to have our dream job. I'm happy that you're sharing this because this is a reminder that if you are not in your dream job right now, you can always switch and try to. I know it's not that easy. It sounds easier, but it's not. Really, we just have one life to live. So why wouldn't we at least try to
Yeah.
be where we feel we belong in a way?
Absolutely. I feel like one of the biggest lessons I learned through the whole journey of switching, let's say, industries, right, was there was doubt in switching from the agency world to
Of
in-house.
course.
It didn't feel like I was at the point of my career where I should be doing that, let's say, on paper. But in talking to a few of my mentors in the space, I just kind of decided to just try it out. And you can always go back. That's the
Of
thing.
course. Of
There's
course.
there's different ways that creativity is going to, foster now, and it doesn't just have to be in one track.
Love it. Well, now Olipop, it's always looking, at least from our perspective as creative in the agency, we see that you are always, as a brand, always looking to stay top of mind with your audience. And sometimes that can be a challenge. So, from your role of creative director, how do you evaluate whether an idea or initiative is the right one to move forward with? Do you follow a specific process or is purely intuition?
It's a good question. I think for us at Olipop, it's a mix of instinct and alignment. I think,
Mhm.
a good idea is one that you and your team can feel like it sparks something emotional, memorable, even surprising. It in the room, there's, kind of appetite and hunger to make it, but it also ladders back to larger business goals and strategy. Like the formalized question, does it answer the brief? Does it
Of
serve the
course.
brand? Does it resonate with the audience that we're trying to hit? But when both of those things line up, we're onto something. And I think there's also risk assessment. We're not afraid to take some swings over here. And I think those are the ideas that get me really excited. But I would say it's really a mix between, no pun intended, gut feeling and strategy.
Love it. Love it. And in that sense, how do you ensure your voice and creative ideas are heard so that your teams follow them or are open to working on them? Or your leadership team approve them. This is important because sometimes we do have the idea, regardless of your role. Because if you are like in the top position in the company,
Yeah.
you still need to kind of sell the idea so the team kind of want to work on it. And if you're not, then it's like you need to kind of convince or get on board your leadership team. So to me, it's important to hear your perspective on how do you do it.
It's a really great question. I think actually the same principle applies in both ways. I think through my career I've kind of learned the importance of both clarity and timing when sharing ideas. And it's always a balance of, I think, conviction and knowing when to listen. I think building trust collectively is extremely important because that makes it easier off the bat for everyone to kind of champion ideas. But I think most important piece that I try to, I think focus on when selling work is that it becomes less about my voice and more about
Mhm.
our collective vision.
Love it.
I think giving everybody the space, no matter if it's the team working on the idea or the executives that I'm selling to, giving everybody a space in the work is really important. It feels like it is a part of the
Love it.
businesses, not just the creative teams.
Love that. And I don't know if you want to go deep, but how do you then give them that? I'm thinking, right? And also as a creative, like you came up with the idea with your team following a brief. So how then when you're pitching the idea, make sure that they are part? Is it like you ask specific questions or when you are pitching, you think on like, okay, I will say this and this name or try to connect with them because I know them? Like how is that process?
I think it's a balance of bringing the right, like the other team members that are imperative to the pitch, to
Okay.
sell the idea with me, right? So
Love it.
whether that's our consumer insights director or our partnerships director, there's elements where if the strategy setup is sound and the reason for being on the idea is a balance between, I would say, logic and creativity, it is easier, I think, to allow space for executives to sign off on an idea.
Love it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm asking because I want to make sure that you get the opportunity to express
Yeah.
because I really believe that it really helps. It helps. And again, majority of our audience are like CMOs in the highest position in a company. So I'm sure they have their own strategies, but it's always refreshing to hear other strategies.
Yeah.
It's evolving. So that's why I go deep.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, right, it's about you believing in the idea and you believing in creativity and inspiring those around you to also believe in it. It's a really hard task, but there's a level of, again, intuition that you have when you know an idea is going to work or not.
Love it. As a creative director, what trend in marketing is exciting you the most right now and why?
I think the rise of community driven content is really
Mm-hmm.
exciting. Like storytelling that actually reflects people's lived experiences. I think it's almost the complete opposite of what we've known advertising and marketing to be. But I
Mm-hmm.
do think that different generations are demanding different things from brands. I don't know if this is technically a trend, but it's almost like substance over surface is extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it is just different than selling, ideas in the 50s with a jingle, right?
Of
There's
course.
there's an element where there has to be a deeper narrative. There has to be actual substance behind a product for people to buy. Every category is becoming extremely oversaturated with, different entrants, specifically ours.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it really is just about making sure your mission, your strategy is clear, as well as who you are engaging with feel wildly authentic, as well as just keeping up with current trend.
Love it. No, I couldn't agree more. Definitely the consumer point of view today is like the new actual brand book in a way.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make sense otherwise. Because at the end of the day, we're building a brand. A lot of brands, but especially CPG brands, it's like literally consumer focused brands. So why wouldn't you, in marketing and in every aspect of the company, consider and use like 100% consumer voice to talk to them? It sounds obvious, but it's really new. So I would say it's a trend, 100%. And hopefully one that will stay because it really makes sense and make advertising more honest, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it. So, talking about audiences, which target audience do you think or find easiest and hardest to reach today and why?
I think that Gen Z is uniquely approachable in some ways because they're a generation that's incredibly engaged. I would say probably the most curious to date,
Mm-hmm.
and open to new brands, just because of, I think, just the rise of social media in childhood. I think, they have been exposed to more in different formats. But at the same time, my answer of easiest and hardest is the same generation, Gen Z,
Mm-hmm.
because their sharp BS means that they can spot inauthenticity instantly. I think the brands that succeed with Gen Z are the ones that are willing to be more vulnerable, the ones that are willing to be more transparent, and the ones that are more willing for what we were just chatting about, like
Correct.
be culturally fluent, right? And
Culturally fluent. Yeah.
I think I'm excited to see what Gen Alpha will bring us.
I
Um,
know. Same.
I do think for right now, my answer is both on Gen Z.
Love it. Love it. I think you agree with many of our guests in this podcast. Our audience, as I said at the beginning, includes many women in the industry who hold high level leadership positions. And yet, even with all their knowledge and experience, putting themselves out there and starting to build a personal or professional brand can feel challenging. Since you are here in this podcast, I can see that you are actively building that personal professional brand and congrats on it. But I'm curious, when did you decide to start and what has been one of the most rewarding things that has happened along the way?
Oh, that's a really great question. I started through my experience at Olipop. And again, not to use the accident play, but again, a little bit by accident on just, it was a mix, I think, between my personal brand, but also the brand as itself, and
Okay.
outwardly pitching creative ideas, talking to trades and whatnot. But I think it's really important as women to make sure that we are continuously getting our voice out there.
Uh
Um,
huh.
and inspiring others to do the same. Again, a cliche, but I was always taught to lead by examples. A lot of my mentors in the space I had seen started to build their personal brands, and I wanted to follow suit.
Love it.
But it's challenging, right? And it's challenging to balance on top of your day-to-day priorities. It's challenging, I think, to think about yourself at times.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Struggling with that. But it's really important to inspire others to keep going, even when it gets hard or even when there's bad days.
I love that. It's kind of clear this podcast is Women Who Brand. And the reason that I started, as I said at the beginning in the intro, is because I really feel that we need to see more women that are already doing things, because sometimes that's not there.
Yeah.
And you see it in the numbers in the panels for many marketing events. Like, you see that we are more and more there, but still not as the actual number in the companies. And not even talk about like the universities and stuff when we have like majority of women, but then in the big creative roles or those type of roles, we don't see each other, right? I'm excited that you are building it, and I know it's hard, but if you're listening and you want to join the podcast, you can do it, because it's really a nice way. This has been the first podcast for many of my guests. As you can see, it's like a chill conversation about life and work, and it's always like, sometimes like start is the way you to start, right? It sounds redundant, but it's really like how to start. Well, do something, and this can be one of those opportunities. So again, thank you for joining me. So last question of this section, and it's connected to personal professional brand. If you were a brand, like a product brand or a CPG brand, whatever, not the personal but a brand itself, what would your personal slogan and brand colors be?
I love that question. I think my slogan would be built on happy accidents.
I love it.
I
It's
think,
cute.
yeah, I think creativity can be really precious sometimes. And I think the best art is formed by accident. Obviously, there's logic and rationale behind it. But I think as adults and as marketers, sometimes we forget that we are really at play here. I think that's what I love so much about working at Olipop specifically, because of our principle of modern nostalgia, which like really balances the feeling of today with the ones that we hold on to of the past, and kind of balancing that nostalgia. I think my colors would be a nice butter yellow mixed with the forest green, really like anything you could see
I butter yellow, love
in
it.
nature. But I think the balance is important, because you can't be bright and sunny all the time. You do have to anchor it in a little bit of reality. But I think that the best work feels human, and I'm incredibly inspired by nature every day. I
Love it.
live in Seattle. It's one of the most beautiful places,
Oh,
naturally beautiful places. So, yeah.
love that. Now let's move forward with the other section, which is more of a campaign specific
Right.
question and conversation. I've been loving everything Olipop is doing. Honestly, I can keep track of all the amazing work, like creative work that you are delivering. So congrats, because I know you're part of a lot of this, especially now that you mentioned that you've been years there. So I saw the Soda Stories campaign, and I was impressed by how you managed to connect the brand with cultural insights and the nostalgic trend, which from what you said, for you is not a trend, but it's part of your DNA. Even though Olipop is a new brand, like that was the tricky in my brain, right? Because it's like you're talking about nostalgia, and it's a brand that is pretty new in a way. So I found it really clever, because it feels nostalgic. At the same time, it feels refreshing, and turns like the whole thing into action, showing how your brand is not just bringing soda back, but really redefining it for a new generation. So I really loved it. It was, again, clear and clever, in my opinion. I feel brands that are new will never explore something in the past because they feel they don't belong.
Yeah.
And I think the way you did it is just so clever. No, I loved it. So I really would love to know more about the process, your involvement, and anything you want to highlight from that campaign. And if you want to mention another one that you think
Yeah.
is, that you want to share, it's your spot.
Yeah. So Soda Stories is actually inspired by consumer behavior that we had been noticing. And, someone takes a sip of any flavor that they had some memory with, it would immediately like almost transport them back to the past. And a lot of us across the brand had noticed this. Someone would take a sip and be like, oh man, that orange squeeze really brings me back to my 10-year-old birthday party. Or, wow, I haven't had a root beer since 1985, when my grandfather used to bring me over a gift of root beer every weekend. And we noticed the emotional connection that specifically a few of our flavors had. But then, kind of in just some cultural research, and I think it's no secret to any of us that in American culture, many of us have an emotional connection to soda. And whether or not you're still drinking it today or you have given it up 10 years ago, there is a connection to childhood with soda. But, there also is a disbelief that soda that is
Yeah,
healthy can
of
actually
course.
have that same taste, and not result in cognitive dissonance of, I thought this was going to taste one way, but it actually tastes another way. So we, set out to bring to life a campaign that both spoke about the functional beverage with all of the fun and flavor of traditional soda with ingredients that support your well-being for the now. And it wasn't, I think, when we talk about how we landed on the look and feel, which we had amazing partners at London Alley, our production company, that helped bring that to life. We really wanted it to be inspired by celebrity campaigns of the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, taps into the raw, unpolished energy of photo booths where bad lighting and goofy poses and unflattering angles were like kind of all parts of the magic. But beneath all of that kitsch, there was like a self awareness to the work. And I think the principle that we had in mind was it wasn't about recreating the past perfectly. It was about remixing it, just like we have kind of remixed traditional soda. And then there was, a mix of celebrity talent within the campaign, as well as some of our real consumers, which we felt was really important to root the brand in authenticity and participation across all of our consumer bases. But it was really fun to bring those sets to life. We kind of treated each one like almost a mini music video of bringing to life whatever the memory was that the person had, or however they
Love it.
like to engage with our product. We wanted to kind of feel like you were digging up your old yearbook and looking at a memory, and that feeling
Mm.
that comes with it.
No, I think you nailed it 100%. It's really clever on any aspect that at least I ask myself, like, oh, they consider this, they consider that. It's really beautiful. Like, congrats. Love it. So, what are the creative challenges you see for the brand coming up? And of course, I'm asking about creative challenges because it's what you do there. So, what
Yeah.
is like a challenge that you see coming up? I wanted to ask this question because you continue to surprise creatively, and that might come with challenges as well. So,
Yeah. Well, we are in the midst of our SpongeBob campaign right now, and we do have a surprise coming in the next few weeks of a continued part of the idea, which we're really excited about. But I think it's really about, again, it goes back to that not being afraid to take risks. I think for us, the biggest challenge right now is the amount of category entrants that we have, and continuing to stay relevant and top of the category. Um,
mhm,
I think we are beginning to enter a time where there feels like a sea of sameness, and making sure that we're able to communicate both our product benefit, but also the emotion that our product does bring, whether that is nostalgia, whether that is, kind of a mindful refresh within the day. Yeah, I think a challenge is still making sure that we are telling a story that is true to us, while also, I think, creating some white space in the category for ourselves.
love it. Such a challenge. So now let's move forward with a quick fire round. It's really like I'll ask a few questions and you say whatever comes to your mind. Are you ready?
Okay,
Commercial spot or social media?
commercial spot.
Who creates the company, the audience or the team members?
The team members,
Winning an award or achieving real business results?
real business results.
Mm. Communication in the US, Spanish, English, or both?
Both.
Favorite soda from Olipop?
Ooh,
Love
ginger ale.
it. Awesome. Do you have a story, as you said, with the stories from your childhood or something with this flavor, or not? It's just a new love.
It's a new love. I think it does make me think about traveling on an airplane as a kid.
Oh.
I think my flavor that I have a memory with
Uh
is
huh.
classic grape.
Okay.
I did not grow up in a household where I was allowed to have soda, but I remember at birthday parties or, going over to conferences, there would be like a moment where I would either reach for orange soda, but there was the occasion that somebody had grape soda. And I remember my neighbor's house specifically going over, using their pool and having a grape soda on a hot summer day. And now I have it at 3 p.m. at my desk, and it still brings me that same, same.
Love it.
So that is my soda story.
Love that. Love that. So, really, thank you for sharing all of it. I think it was super insightful and like cool to listen to you and your story and your approach. I think you're pretty. I mean, this is not me giving feedback, but I think honestly, you're pretty. Like, you can feel that you really love the place where you're working, and that's really inspiring. Just that. It's just inspiring already. So, thank you for sharing it. We will have two more questions to close this episode and we will be ready. So, one,
Great.
what does it mean to you to be a woman who brands? And what advice would you give to a woman in the creative industry, especially one in a leadership position or in a creative role?
I think being a woman who brands means leading with both creativity and conviction. I think it's important to balance bringing your point of view to the room, but also opening the door for others to do the same. And I think my advice to the community would be, don't be afraid to push for ideas that feel a little scary, whether that your own career path or the idea that you're trying to sell in the room. It's usually where the magic lives, of just kind of trying out new things and not being fearful of the unconventional. And I think trust that your voice really does have value, and the more that you use it, the more space you create for others to do the same.
Love it. I thank you so much. I don't know if there is something else you want to share or add.
I think that's it from my end.
That's it.
So much for having me. I really
No,
appreciate it.
thank you, sweetheart. Thank you for this amazing conversation and for sharing all the insight with our community. So, to all women who brand, listening or reading, remember your voice matters and your creativity has the power to inspire and lead. Until next time, ciao.